All right, let's start with the ridiculous, and then we'll get to the sublime. The ridiculous is the Tesla pitch. Albert, if you can just quickly play for Anthony and myself and for everyone a little bit of what happened at the White House yesterday. Trump, seeing that Tesla was being literally attacked. I mean, that the Teslas are being defaced. The Tesla stock, as I mentioned, is tanking. The Tesla reputation is really being smeared, And so Elon Musk, who is Trump's donor, I mean, the donor of record, he doesn't want to see this guy damaged. And so he weirdly, crudely, as is a lot of the stuff in this administration, it's executed crudely, goes out onto the White House lawn in a set up photo op. And it's more than a photo op. The guy's actually pitching. The president of the United States is pitching for Tesla vehicles. This is a guy who has dumped on electric cars, wants to roll back the transition to electric cars and electric vehicles, for example, that the Postal Service would have, these things under Biden. He wants to roll all that stuff back. But all of a sudden, his best friend, and as I say, his major donor, is taking big hits. So he's a friend of the electric vehicle that is Tesla. Play a little bit of it, if you would, please, Albert.
So what is this one, Elon?
That's the Model Y.
That's a Model Y, so I have a lot of information that's good into price.
Yeah.
I want to make a good deal here. I do notice this. They have one, which is $35,000, which is pretty low. What is that all about?
Yeah, what is all that about? Indeed, a photographer for Getty Images captured this shot of the script the president was reading. You may recall this happened a number of times with President Biden as well. Above the president's thumb there, you can see the Tesla models to mention, as well as their prices. And below his thumb, you can see the part about how Teslas can be purchased as low as $299 a month or $35,000. It only got more surreal.
It's like driving a golf cart, basically.
No, it's beautiful. Very simple.
It's very simple. So it's literally like a golf cart that goes really fast.
So he goes on with essentially a pitch. I mean, he pitches for buying these cars. $35,000 seems like it's not a lot of money. He makes, this went on for some time. It was a fairly complicated thing to set up. I'm sure you had to get those cars all out there, and you got to get the media and the media alert. And Trump, with nothing sort of beneath him when it comes to pitching and when it comes to bringing money in of one sort or another, pledged to buy one of these cars. So play the last little bit, and then I'll move on. But this was what dominated the White House yesterday. Go ahead, Albert. I don't know if we have,
what Secret Service go crazy? Thank you.
I mean, if you actually drove it around, it would really be wild.
Wow.
That's
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Okay, I've seen enough. And then, he saw everybody out of the White House having purchased supposedly.
I love Tesla.
Saying, I love Tesla. So this is bizarre and tacky, as we were saying before, but it happens in the shadow of this trade war, which is real, and also the dismantling of government, which is leading to tens of thousands of people out of work. It's bizarre against that backdrop,
There's a bunch of things about that event yesterday that really kind of made me think this country is it's one giant infomercial. Like, I feel right now, and I am a bit depressed about this administration. Every day I wake up and I dread checking my phone. But it's like being in a reality TV show with Trump as the host. That's how it feels. Every day there's something. It made clear to me that, firstly, Trump doesn't know the first thing about anything. So he doesn't really, most people can tell the difference between a Model Y and a Model 3. Like, these cars have been out for nearly a decade now. It's like, if you live and you go out and about and you just know this stuff. He didn't know anything about anything. And then he gets in and he goes, it's like a computer. This suggests to me that the man who is running the free world, or the formerly free world, not free anymore because you get arrested if you have an opinion they don't like, doesn't live in the same society as we do. He is so far removed from our shared reality. I mean, who hasn't looked up the price of a Tesla and think, oh, maybe I'll get a Tesla? Even as a fantasy, even if you can't afford it. You still go on the website and you have a little look and see what the lease deals are. That's just like living in a normal kind of American society. Trump cannot do that. And then he also lied about the fact that he can't drive. He said, oh, I used to love to drive. I love to drive. I love cars. I would drive, but they won't let me. They won't let me drive. They won't let me drive. I mean, look, Joe Biden was driving around the forecourt of the White House all the time. So it's not about they won't let him drive. He just can't drive because he's a mess. He's an absolute mess, and he probably doesn't have a driver's license anymore. But that aside, it's the corruption that really sticks out here because, I remember Chevy bringing out new cars and the former presidents celebrating the new vehicles. That's what you do for great American companies. But not if the boss of that company is working for the administration in the White House and cutting everything that people hold dear, including Social Security, which is next. So that is the conflict of interest. He only did this because of Tesla's share price, and Musk probably moaned to him and said, oh, the share price is crashing, and, I'm doing all this great work, and I don't understand why people aren't supporting me. And Trump's like, I know what I'll do. I'll do an infomercial for you. Give me a cheat sheet, as he did, and then goes out there and does a terrible job of selling Teslas to the public. Because then you have to ask, which person is going to see Trump being a clown and a disaster with Musk outside the White House with this Tesla and think, I want to be like that. I get me one of those Teslas right now. If Trump likes it, even though he's not driving it, and he said he can't drive it, and maybe he'll just buy it and have it for his staff. No, I mean, people are not that stupid, and Trump thinks they are. So there you go. I'll finish now.
Well,
that's how I felt.
There are two. I have a general insight that I'd like to share, and then there's big news adjacent to this, and I'll start with the big news that's adjacent to this. Kim was pointing out, before we came on, that the recharacterization of protest against Tesla as domestic terrorism is a truly troubling thing. And I've seen this in the animal rights movement because animal rights protesters are prosecuted using a domestic terrorism template that is far more intense, can lead to incredible jail time threats, like 15 to 20 years, for simply being involved in an animal rights protest. But they pick and choose how they prosecute and what things are classified as what. And in this case, now, if you prosecute those associated with violence against Tesla, okay, and I don't know what that means.
Well, there hasn't been any violence, really.
Exactly.
It's been protest.
Right.
And a couple of people have, splashed paint on the outside, which, again, is part of peaceful protest. It's non-permanent, it's making a point, and it's just like criminal damage. It's not terrorism. And terrorism is when you break into the U.S. Capitol. Terrorism is when you attack police officers and cause that level of damage because the president at the time tells you, I'll go with you and we're not going to have a country if we don't go and, take it back. I mean, the hypocrisy is so offensive. But, why is the media not using the word authoritarianism every single day? Because all of these stories, Mark, that we read and we hear, and of course, Mahmoud Khalil, who is the guy who was arrested a few days ago on the weekend, I think it was Saturday, for being part of the Columbia University peaceful protests supporting the Palestinians in the war on Gaza. I mean, he's now, no one knows where he is. He's been disappeared by the authorities for no reason. He's a legal permanent resident, green card holder. They've totally broken the law in this process. The judge says he can't be deported, which is great news, but it should never have come to that. We are living in an authoritarian fascist regime, and American exceptionalism is preventing anybody from kind of going, yeah, we are. It's the same with the
This is a really
constitutional
important thing
crisis.
you've just said, because this myth of American exceptionalism has prevented us from really seeing that the pot is boiling already.
Yeah.
I want to double back just quickly, though, and say that some of the Tesla stuff, I don't want to soft pedal it completely.
Sure.
There was a Tesla charging station that was set on fire. There was a Molotov cocktail, I think, thrown at a Tesla dealership. There were shots fired in Oregon at a Tesla dealership. It's not as though there haven't been some legit violent moves relative to Tesla. So, again, I don't know if I prosecute them as domestic terrorism.
Well, they're caused by the president. I mean, it would be different if these things were happening randomly because someone didn't like the fact that Elon Musk tried to get the Nazi party elected in Germany, right? They're not protesting that. They're protesting the fact that he has cut billions of dollars worth of aid to the most hungry people in Africa, that he's coming after Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. That's what they're protesting, and that is your right. It is your right to assemble and to protest in America. And the moment that the leadership goes, okay, we're not having any of that, that is the door of fascism being pushed wide open.
It's incredibly rich that this administration, which was really behind encouraging the greatest act of domestic terrorism, as you say, the invasion of the Capitol, where many police officers and officials were beaten within inches of their life, and one person was killed, others died the next day and in the days that followed, that they could somehow suggest that this protest around Tesla that does, again, lead to some of these incidents to which I've referred, that somehow could be domestic terrorism. You won't call one domestic terrorism, even as it's clearly
He
that.
released them all. He gave them all a pardon. He put his personal militia back out onto the streets. These were people that went through the court process, and 90% of them pleaded guilty. And he still set them free. Look, nobody voted for Elon Musk. I personally don't believe that as many people voted for Donald Trump as you think. But Elon Musk himself is a civilian. He's himself an immigrant. He has shown up and is basically running the government. Trump just didn't want to go to prison, so he is delegated. He just wants to play golf now that he's been elected. And all of this stuff is because of Donald Trump. What is the common denominator with January 6th and the vandalizing the Tesla dealerships? The common denominator is Donald Trump being a terrible person. You know, saying you're not going to have a country anymore if we don't go attack the Capitol. Or bringing Musk in to run the government because he's too lazy to do it himself and has someone to blame. I mean, this is the theme, and this is going to keep happening time and time again. And if you look around the world and see how Europe is scrambling to try and reposition its military and invest in military, that's not a good thing. That's not because Donald Trump did a great thing and got them to pay more. It's because they are not guaranteed the support of the transatlantic alliance anymore, because Trump doesn't want to have anything to do with any countries outside the US. This is very dangerous. This is how Hitler rose to prominence. This is how the Second World War started. And, you know, Trump is just, you know, I always struggle to have real empathy for how Hitler managed to take over firstly Germany and then Europe and convert regular Germans into Nazis, because I wasn't there, and you can read about it, but you can't really feel it. Now, Mark, I can feel it. We are going through this period where a nut job leader is just lying about everything, and people will believe him, and we're suddenly looking at the most polarized situation America has found itself in. It's not just the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's America and Russia versus the rest of the world. And it's only taken 6 weeks.
The parallels to the rise of the Third Reich are interesting, and the authoritarian parallel is clear to me. I would say this, you know, Hitler rose at a time of economic hardship for Germans. We actually are enjoying, notwithstanding the fact that he won because of the price of eggs. Again, I think that was just a hook on which to hang racism and a bunch of other stuff that, and just general grievances, owning the libs, whatever it was, that political correctness, these things that are, I suggest, irritants, but they're basic resentments that all are kind of like, nah, I'm sick of it. Bring in Trump again, whatever. And then they call it the price of eggs. But the economic health of the nation prior to the last week or 10 days was really quite good. He inherited a super solid economy. I mean,
but he would never admit that, though, would he?
But I'm just saying that he's had to, do a bigger lift, don't you think, Anthony, to kind of assert himself, given the fact the economy really isn't that bad. You're going to see it get really bad real fast.
Which he's admitted. He said, initially it was like, there's going to be a period of, where a turbulence. And then now he's going like, well, there might be a recession. And meanwhile, the markets are nosediving. Forget Tesla's stock. I mean, look at the S&P 500. So I'm just very much of the opinion that this whole thing must be a plan to crash the economy on purpose. I cannot think you can be that stupid. All of them. They're all involved because they've all gone to cash. They're all crashing the markets, and then they're all going to buy back in at a much lower price and then wait for the economy to grow in 3 or 4 years' time. I cannot see how you can be so dumb because, as Justin Trudeau said, and by the way, it was Trudeau earlier when you were thinking about which governor it was. Governor Trudeau is what he was saying. It's
Governor Trudeau.
Trudeau said there's no need for these tariffs. Like we're not at war with each other. The excuse Trump gave for putting 25% on Canadian goods was because they're allowing fentanyl to come across the border, which is completely untrue. There is just no data or evidence to back that up. And so, Trump has had to lie to kind of find a reason to go to war with Canada and Mexico. They must be doing this on purpose to crash the world economy. It must be. I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy because it's so nuts, Mark.
Well, one of the things, Anthony, I think that there are two aspects to this, I think. One of them is that it is an authoritarian playbook that you rise from the kind of ashes. That's why I mentioned the Third Reich rising from,
Hitler
the economic
was the German
ruin.
chancellor, and Hitler got in because of interest rates.
Thank you.
And he was going to balance the economy, and people bought into that. But it was the same here. Even though the economy was growing out of the back of the pandemic, thanks to Biden and the administration, people weren't feeling it because of the price gouging and also the supply chain, and eggs became this thing. But, you can live without eggs. I mean, am I right in saying you don't eat eggs?
I don't. No, I do not.
So this is my point. You can live without eggs, but you can't live without freedom. You can't live without your vote. You can't live without free speech and free movement. That's what's at stake.
This from Ryan with 20 euros. Thank you for the super chat. Corruption behind closed doors, i.e. representatives making stock trades, etc. This is a little bit of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or out in the open, like Trump promoting Tesla. What's the difference? Washington, D.C. is one big corrupt cesspool. It has always been corrupt, but the corruption now has been amplified on a level that I've never seen it.
I mean, there's corruption when it's, just part of a system being too big. And then there's kind of Lex Luthor level corruption, which is what we're looking at now. And so I don't think you can compare. I mean, look, he fired 17 inspectors general in his first week. Did anybody know what their job was? Because I don't think people really knew until now. Their job is to weed out corruption, is to look for waste and inefficiency in the federal government. And there's 17 of them. And that is their job, and they're really good at it. And they fired them all. What does that tell you about what is really going on? Doge is not about waste, fraud, and abuse. Doge is ideological. It's about not giving money to black Africans to eat. It's about getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion because the MAGA Republicans, their testosterone levels won't allow for it.
Well, it's also Musk's personal grievances. You know, he
Correct.
goes after USAID first because they were doing the investigation on Starlink with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and Starlink was turned off for the Ukrainians. USAID was doing that. Then he goes to the FAA, he gets rid of them. The FAA was fining him for the thing that we've seen in the last week, which is the rockets that are blown up and then they affect traffic patterns. He got rid of the FAA people, goes to EPA. They're fining him as well for the debris going down into fragile habitats. So you see how...
Because he's a criminal mastermind. I mean, and that's why he gets on with Trump so well. That's why Trump got on with Jeffrey Epstein so well. Because all of these people, they are all of the same character. They're not good people. They don't understand. They don't have any concept of empathy or why you would just give money to, only 0.63% of the federal budget to the rest of the world to maintain a sense of influence and keep people out of poverty. Like, to them, it makes no sense. But to the rest of us who are actual humans, who have all of our faculties, it's essential. America is the richest economy in the world. It can afford to give away 0.63% of its budget to help the very poorest and to spread the message that America is a great country. And that's why people want to move here, and that's why people queue up at the southern border, because we've been giving them aid and supporting them and telling them that America is generous.
That's soft power. Exactly. That's soft power. Lori Dolly says, Anthony Davis, have him tell you about the Rebel Alliance from his 5-minute news yesterday, Lori Dolly says. Quickly, we'll do that on the way out here. Thank you, Lori, for a $30 super chat, by the way. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said that it was time. I was talking about the Democrats and their strategy, and I was saying that it's time now to allow the Rebel Alliance to go attack the Death Star. Because I really do see this. I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I always do a lot of Star Wars references. But, it is good against evil, the dark side and the good side of the Force. And there's no doubt to me that the Democrats are the Rebel Alliance. And they need to come together, and they need to not worry about being criticized for representing all views and being completely inclusive. Because actually, Trump's remit is so narrow. It's just, it's just like white men and their coerced wives brimming with racial microaggressions. I don't believe that's the majority of America.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's more people than you may think. And I would say there are other things that Trump draws on for support. I mean, I think one of the things that propelled him to victory was the sense that he'd be good for the economy, good for business. Again, it's illusory. It's crazy. I mean, I saw this train coming down the tracks, and you did too. But there are others, even Wall Streeters, bankers, who go, yeah, but Trump will be good for the economy. He's not serious about the tariff stuff.
Well, because they've been brainwashed. They're in the cult. This is a national mental health crisis. It's not as simple as the ledger, because all the economists say that the tariffs won't bring in any revenue, and that Doge is not really finding waste. It's just, getting rid of things that they don't like the sound of or they've never heard of. So, and the stock market is crashing. And look, every Republican presidency has grown the debt massively. And every Democratic presidency has come and reduced the debt and invested. And it's been like that since time began. And yet, for some weird reason, the Republicans have a reputation for being better with money. Yes. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't trust them to go down to 7-Eleven and do my shopping. They spend 3 times more than I was prepared to pay for.
Anthony, you rock, dude, said somebody. Northern Tier, I think. Susan Roberts, I'm traveling to London next month. Please ask Anthony Davis if they will let me in, since I'm from the USA.
You're fine. You have a 6-month freedom voucher. So come on in for 6 months.
All right. Good stuff. We got to wrap up with Anthony Davis. Check him out on the Minus Touch Network. He's #1 now. So I appreciate you coming over here to slum with us. You're not only my favorite Britisher, but you're one of my favorite people, as you know, and great takes. By the way, I think one of the things that Trump is about is the announcement. I think he likes to announce things. You know what I mean? I'm really serious, Anthony. I think he likes to make the statement about Tesla, make the statement about the tariffs. So
yeah, I mean, Gulf of America, that's just straight out of Trump's ideas box, Yeah. And I think a lot of people have said he just wants to be in the newspapers every single day.
That's
so he's
exactly
going to
right.
announce stuff, even if it doesn't really mean anything, because he hates to not be talked about.
Precisely. And yet these things that he's announcing and the back and forth and the perceived respect that he has from other world leaders, it's going to lead to some very dark things, sadly. So, all right, come visit again. Thank you. Anthony Davis, everybody.
Thank you.
Love it.
Hi,
Love
it's
seeing
Mark,
you.
and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.